Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on 2 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to remind everyone that Georgia's votes matter and everyone should care about each state in the United States of America and voter rights. And I would also like to remind everyone that in order to buy a gun, you have to have a valid ID. That's required, just like voters should have a valid ID. Talking about the state of Georgia in the 2020 election, my ex-husband showed up to vote for President Trump, myself, and other candidates that he wanted to support. And when he showed up to vote, he was told that he had already voted by absentee ballot. And he said, no, that's not true. I haven't voted by absentee ballot. As a matter of fact, I didn't even request an absentee ballot. And they said, well, Mr. Green, it shows right here on the Secretary of State website that you've already voted by absentee ballot. And he said, well, that's not true. I haven't voted. I would like to vote here in person. That's what I'm doing. And so they made him sign a form surrendering a ballot that he never requested and never voted on so that he could vote in person. And he was deeply troubled by this. He was upset by it. But what bothered him even more is there was a whole line of voters there that day that were doing the same thing. We carried on, and he had to go through quite a lengthy legal process to find out what happened. And he still hasn't found out why someone was able to vote with an absentee ballot in his name. He also never found out what happened to that absentee ballot, if it was thrown out, and who they voted for. You see, there are problems in our elections, and it's important to remember. We saw many of them in the 2020 election. We saw suitcases pulled out from tables, suitcases of ballots. And then here we just saw in the news that a Postal Service releases final report. Contract driver Jesse Morgan vindicated because he had been trying to say that he hauled a trailer of ballots from New York to Pennsylvania in late October 2020. These things matter. And Democrats know they matter too, because in 2019, Democrat senators Klobuchar, Warner, Reed, and Peters had all wrote a letter of how concerned they were because intelligence agents.
The biggest question that I be having with this ID, because I ain't gonna lie to you, I do be getting confused. Ladies and gentlemen, Burn Live, marijuanically keeping you up with the news, hashtagging these red eyes, changing the viewers' eye red, keeping underage smoking off of social media, killing ourselves for your entertainment, sitting here with friends and family, starting a cannabis station. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a lot of argues about using IDs, and it's racist to ask a black person for an ID, and they try to say that some people call other people dumb and excluding them out. And so when it comes to ID, I'm confused. So I'm always here. I'm always up to listen to a video to try to get a better explanation of who, what, when, where, and why is we going through these troubles, or voting to see who wants an ID.
We're saying that elections were in danger of being hacked by foreign nationals or foreign countries because election machines could be hacked. Now, I think that's problematic, and I think everyone can agree that we don't want foreign countries or foreigners meddling in our elections. And so my question would be, if this is such a deep concern, Ms. Weiser, Ms. Evans, Mr. Spies, Mr. Cuccinelli, one by one, could you say yes or no if you agree that we don't want foreign actors meddling in our elections? Ms. Weiser, let me start with you.
That is correct. We don't want foreign actors meddling in our elections.
As Director of DC Board of Elections, I make no opinion statements.
No, that's a yes or no, Ms. Evans.
I provide no opinions in my role as the Executive Director of the District of Columbia.
So you're unable to have it. How do you do your job if you can't give an opinion or an answer? Seems like you'd be unfit to serve in the job that you have if you're unable to provide a yes or no answer on foreign actors meddling in United States elections.
My job is to administer the laws as they've been provided in the District of Columbia, and I perform my job with integrity, and I know my job well, and that is my responsibility.
So you're not unable to
to-
say no, so we'll take that as a yes. You agree with foreign actors meddling in United States elections. Mr. Spees?
Strongly oppose it.
Mr. Cuccinelli?
Also oppose it, including non-citizens voting.
I agree. The House passed a resolution of disapproval with 40.
That I can get along with. The Democratic Party was the first party to lower voting rights. When you lower the voting rights, you're giving people the opportunity to become grown. Now, 21 to drive, 16 to buy cigarettes, 18 to vote. Yeah. Just because it's 21 out here, it's 16 in some states. I'm the youngest that you can buy cigarettes in like states like Tennessee, Missouri, and stuff like that. Yes, it's about like 18. Smaller rural counties that, you know what I'm saying, it's not big, heavily populated. I bet you can probably go up in the store at 16 and get you a pack of cigarettes. Now, don't quote me on this, y'all, but I'm just saying we need our IDs for a lot of stuff, but they don't want you to have an ID to vote. They don't think that you should have to verify yourself when it comes to voting. But the Republicans think that it will help to verify when it's time for you to vote. Me, on the other hand, I am with that. I am with that. But I just seen the most weirdest, awkwardest, craziest news. Hopefully I can actually find it. So far, no. I knew they weren't gonna let me find it. All right. So let me come up to it a little bit later. Hope that ain't making y'all dizzy. Let's get into this.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. On Tuesday afternoon, the Biden administration had Donald Trump arrested. It was a pretty big news story. You may have seen it. Just before 9 p.m. that night, as part of its coverage, Fox News ran 2 live video feeds next to one another. On the right, Donald Trump addressed his supporters in New Jersey. On the left, Joe Biden spoke at an event for the Secretary General of NATO in Washington. Beneath those videos at the bottom of the screen, Fox's banner read this way, quote, "Wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested." Those words were up for less than 30 seconds, but the effect was immediate. Inside Fox, the women who run the network panicked. First, they scolded the producer who put the banner on the screen. Less than 24 hours after that, he resigned. He'd been at Fox for more than a decade. He was considered one of the most capable people in the building. He offered to stay for the customary 2 weeks, but Fox told him to clear out his desk and leave immediately. Then the company issued a public apology for the 27-second-long wannabe dictator line. Quote, "The chyron was taken down immediately," Fox's PR department said, and then added ominously it was, quote, "addressed." That was all true, but it was not enough to save Fox News from the ensuing scandal. For a time in the rest of the media, Fox's assessment of Donald Trump's arrest seemed to overshadow Trump's arrest itself. Suggesting that Biden is a dictator, declared the Washington Post, quote, "crossed the line." Alexander Vindman agreed strongly. Vindman is the perennial MSNBC guest and full-time Ukraine promoter you may remember from Russiagate. On Twitter, he demanded that the Pentagon pull Fox News from all military bases. It is, quote, "absolutely unacceptable for American Forces Network to carry programming that directly, spuriously attacks the commander-in-chief of American Armed Forces," Vindman wrote. In other words, Joe Biden must ban all criticism of himself because that's what non-dictators do. John Cusack went further still. "For the crime of calling Biden a dictator, Fox should be shut down," wrote the 80s era movie star. Quote, the government has to take away their broadcasting license, and so on. It was all over the internet. Democrats were very, very angry. But why were they angry? If the banner on Fox was false, why the hysteria? Lies don't seem to bother anyone anymore. If some cable news producer had called Joe Biden a genius or accused him of being secretly Sudanese, would anyone be yelling about it? Would Fox News have apologized for it? Probably not. But calling Joe Biden a wannabe dictator, that stung. So you've got to wonder, if you're being honest with yourself, is Joe Biden a wannabe dictator? That question came up yesterday at the White House briefing. Here's how it went.
Last night, Fox News ran a chyron that referred to the president as a wannabe dictator, and I'm wondering if the White House has any comment on that.
So look, there are probably about 787 million things that I can say about this. That was wrong about what we saw last night, but I don't think I'm going to get into it.
There's no comment the White House has
I
on.
think I just commented.
Oh, no comment necessary. Of course, Joe Biden's not a wannabe dictator. Just because he's trying to put the other candidate in prison for the rest of his life for a crime he himself committed doesn't mean he has a totalitarian impulse. Come on, that's absurd. It takes a lot more than jailing your political rivals to earn the title wannabe dictator. That's the consensus in Washington tonight. And in some ways, for once, the consensus may be right. It is not a small thing to be a wannabe dictator. It's quite a process. There are a lot of steps. First off, there is the money. The one thing that all dictators have in common is they enrich themselves and their families, their tribe, even as the countries they govern grow steadily poorer and more desperate. They take kickbacks from businesses and from other dictators. They use the official functions of their government to funnel cash to themselves. They don't bother to hide the fruits of this. They live in garish mansions with big lawns, far from the teeming cities, even as their own citizens languish in growing poverty, in some cases, literally living in tents on the street. So they don't really hide it. It's all pretty blatant. And ordinary people resent it. Of course they do. And wannabe dictators know they resent it, but they don't care. There's nothing the population can do about it in a dictatorship. It's no longer possible to fight injustice in a system like that. People can't gather in large numbers to protest the rule of the dictator. If they try that, they'll be arrested by his state security services, even years after the fact. A visit from men in body armor at the breakfast table. That happens. And if citizens persist in believing they can gather in groups to protest, they may be shot to death, a bullet to the throat. And then, just to make the humiliation complete, to make the lesson gin clear to everyone else watching, their relatives can be arrested for daring to complain that their children were killed for complaining. That actually happens in some places. Ask Ashley Babbitt's mother. Here she is in handcuffs.
You murdered her inside the Capitol. Now you're going to arrest her?
101. I will transfer the slide.
So don't be like Ashley Babbitt's mother, much less like poor Ashley Babbitt. She's dead now. That's the message a wannabe dictator would send. And by the way, it's not just public protest that would be banned in a dictatorship. You wouldn't be allowed to complain from your own home. Unauthorized opinions expressed on the internet would be censored. Go too far, press too deep, tell too much truth, and they'll just erase your opinions. They have no choice, really. It's a matter, as they say, of trust and safety. You must trust the leader, or else you will jeopardize his safety. Not that you really can jeopardize his safety at this point. The leader has nuclear weapons, and you don't. He'll remind you of that from time to time. And in any case, you're in the process of being disarmed anyway, along with everyone else who has shown questionable loyalty to the leader. Those who support the regime can keep their weapons and use them freely, including on public transportation. That's a core civil right for them. But for those who dissent from the program, self-defense is an unaffordable privilege. Turn in your guns, Mr. and Mrs. Peaceful Opposition. You're a danger to society, and we know who you are. And in fact, the wannabe dictator does know who they are because he knows everything. Technology has made him all-seeing. A report in Wired magazine just this week revealed that the highly non-dictatorial Biden administration is busy tracking the phones of millions of Americans without their knowledge and without bothering to.
That's why people fear Tucker Carlson. The truth that this man be spitting and how he spit it to where you can understand it and break it down. I'm just want to let y'all know the things that he are saying and things that he are proving is the reason why most of us conservative or Republicans or independents, losers, feel and are fighting against.
To get a warrant. And at the same time, the same non-dictatorial administration is stockpiling a massive trove of damaging information about these same Americans to be used at some point, we are sure, for entirely noble purposes. So the administration now knows everything: where you spend your days, who you talk to, what you think, your porn habits. Not a big deal. The administration already knows what you buy, of course, because they've leaned on the big banks to turn over your confidential credit card information. Not because anyone here is a wannabe dictator, to be clear, but just because. It's nice to have that information, just in case, in the words of the Fox News PR department, a situation arises that needs to be, quote, addressed. It's all totally normal. It's not a dictatorship, okay? But in the end, the main reason you know Joe Biden is not a wannabe dictator is because he just does not fit the profile as a man. Dictators have that look. You know one when you see one. Dictators build cults of personality around themselves, and they use those cults to deny the glaringly obvious. In his later years, to name just one example, North Korean dictator Kim Il-sung developed an enormous baseball-sized tumor on the back of his neck. It was huge. It was grotesque. It was right there. You couldn't ignore it. You couldn't possibly not see it. But in North Korea, state media did ignore it. They pretended it didn't exist. And so, in some important sense, it didn't. If a tumor grows on a neck, but no one acknowledges it, is it really there? Thankfully, nothing like that is happening in our country or ever will. If Joe Biden ever developed some profound physical or medical problem that was obvious to everybody, journalists would say something. This is not North Korea. We don't have state media here. If Joe Biden was, say, incapable of completing a full sentence, or mistook his sister for his wife, or suddenly started falling down in public for no reason, the New York Times would report on that and then get to the bottom of what was actually happening. That would be its duty in a free country like ours. It's not like they would cover it up. The very idea of a cover-up sounds like a conspiracy theory, a dangerous one, actually, so stop it. And by the way, if Joe Biden was a wannabe dictator, he'd have the family to match. All dictators do. Saddam Hussein had Uday and Qusay. They were princelings who lived above the law, indulging their most decadent fantasies with total confidence they would be never held to account by the police. As the sons of a dictator, they knew they could do exactly what they wanted. And so that's what they did. There's no one like that around Joe Biden. He doesn't have weird sex scandals at the heart of his family that no one in the media will ever talk about. He doesn't have a ne'er-do-well former nightclub-owning brother who's made a living for 30 years by being related to him. Not at all. That's dictator stuff. Joe Biden doesn't award ridiculous inflated titles to his relatives that the media are then required to take seriously. He doesn't call people doctor who didn't go to medical school and then force you to nod along like it's real when everyone knows it isn't. Nicolae Ceausescu did that with his wife, Elena. Joe Biden would never do that. Nor does Joe Biden dress like a dictator. He doesn't do photo ops in mirrored sunglasses driving a sports car to convince you that he isn't frail and senile, but instead powerful, virile, and wise. That's just not his style. If Joe Biden was a dictator, he'd be wearing epaulets and carrying a tasseled riding crop, and he isn't yet, so calm down. If he was a dictator, Biden's speeches would look like Nuremberg rallies, a blood-red backdrop.
Best description that we can ever hear somebody describe Joe Biden. And this is a professional person that's describing Joe Biden. Imagine if we got down to the nitty-gritty of the Joe Biden. But we'll never get justification unless Trump get in office. How things looking now? It doesn't look like we finna get in the office. Well, not Trump. Hey, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Who am I to say that a person's finna get in office and not get in office? You know? I'm nobody special. You know? Well, that's how I look at it. I'm not special. I I did hear in Denver, which I have not seen no reports of 10 people killed during the Denver's parade. I did hear a story like that. I was wondering if I can find anything about it. So they didn't talk about it, basically. Y'all see what I'm gonna go to. But I'm gonna go to this. Nope. I gotta hear this.
All right,
Just
we're going to
curious.
do a deep dive now into what is happening psychologically, epistemologically, and cognitively with your average Trump voter right now. Now, let me set this up for you. We're going to look at a couple of focus groups, foci, we might even call them, okay, that PBS did with voters. And if I came to you and I said, folks, I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you the insanity of the voters who want a flat tax, you would probably look at me and say, David, that's not super interesting. Like wanting a flat tax, even if I disagree with it, it's not really indicative of something wacky and zany that's going on. And I would agree with you. But we have a situation right now where we have a twice indicted, twice impeached, globally humiliated, failed former president with significant evidence of criminality against him, innocent until proven guilty, of course, running a campaign that is absolute lunacy. And yet there are still presumably tens of millions of people that support the guy. We're going to try to figure out what's going on. That's the introduction.
I'm glad I found this guy. Somebody make sure that I hit his subscribe button. When a person speaks upon Trump like that, I want to get more of their inputs and see how they really feel and stuff. I'm so glad I found this person.
Let's jump into the video and then we'll discuss.
How many of you know that Donald Trump was indicted last week? Raise your hand.
Everybody raises their hands, although some sort of reluctantly.
How many of you have heard that Donald Trump was indicted for a second time recently?
And the reason for hearing the questions twice is there's two focus groups here and they're switching between the two.
Everybody knows. Okay.
From the 16 Republican voters we gathered yesterday evening, there were strong reactions to the second indictment of former President Donald Trump.
Well, I think he's being set up.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me why.
Well, it's just too arranged. Everything is just too arranged. And when the FBI went in and raided his property at Mar-a-Lago, how do we know what they did and what they didn't do?
Right and wrong are just totally messed up.
We had asked pollster Sarah Longwell, who also publishes the center-right website The Bulwark, to assemble two panels of GOP voters in the studio of Iowa PBS. I observed from the control room as she asked how they're thinking about politics, policy, and current events at this moment, when candidates are already descending upon their state ahead of next year's caucuses, and as the news of the second Trump indictment had been breaking.
It's baloney. I think, just why isn't Biden indicted? Just because he gave them back at an appropriate time? I mean, really? He did exactly the same thing.
Well, you have a current president who is sicking all of the DOJ on a potential candidate. That's never happened.
Right. Yeah. They really feel like the country's going in the wrong direction.
Afterwards, Longwell, who has conducted hundreds of...
Okay, so let's pause there. So asked their thought, they all had heard of the indictment, asked about their thoughts on the indictment. They said, it's clearly a setup. The photos appear to have been staged, sort of like we don't know what the FBI did, meaning they staged or set it up in some way. It's baloney. Biden did the same thing and should be arrested or charged himself. Biden sicked the DOJ on Trump, for which there is quite literally no evidence whatsoever. No evidence whatsoever. Let's continue.
Support for Donald Trump. How many of you distrust the FBI?
The three-letter agencies, the DOJ, the CIA, the FBI. I think when the country was formulated, the best of intent was to put some of these organizations or governing bodies in place, but how they're being manipulated now and they're being weaponized is a bigger concern.
This is just straight up what MAGA has been feeding these folks. These folks have uncritically accepted these bogus talking points.
So we did hear about the FBI, not the FBI, by the IRS trying to get guns so they can go and collect money for tax people that wasn't paying their taxes. We didn't hear reports like that. They don't got the right to understand that the FBI came out and admitted that the Russia collusion was a hoax. I think this is like the third day I get to say it in a row. These are things that were told to us.
I'm kind of frustrated by it because on one side, it seems like we're all going all out on President Trump. And on the other side, the wheels of justice are going very slow. Doesn't seem to be like equal amount of resources being devoted to looking into Hunter Biden's laptop.
And
Hunter Biden's laptop is an issue for these folks in thinking about what's going on right now in the Republican Party.
About Hillary Clinton. I mean, Hillary Clinton had all this stuff, and she was never indicted.
You've got the DOJ, you've got the FBI reporting up to Biden. Ultimately, this.
Don't forget, when they said the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop supposedly has them collusion with China and foreign policy trades, supposedly. So yes, I'm concerned about a secret document laptop that's just as secretive as papers in the White House getting leaked out or has been leaked out, or you got videos of crackheads.
Goes up to Biden. So why wouldn't you want to take out your toughest political opponent? And this is election interference like we've never seen before.
That is a Trump quote. I mean, that's what Trump posts to Truth Central. This is election interference like we've never seen before. That's where they get this stuff.
And it's disguised as Trump's a bad guy.
How many of you wanted Hillary Clinton to be indicted for her? Okay. Did you think?
Okay, so of the people at the table, 2 of the 8 did not raise their hand that they wanted Hillary indicted.
She should go to jail for what she did?
Absolutely.
Because Trump at the
Okay, now that's interesting. They're saying Hillary should have gone to jail. These are the folks who claim to be about law and order and bemoan lack of due process when it comes to Trump. They're saying Hillary should have gone to jail. They don't know about the evidence. They seem not to care that Hillary was cleared. They seem not to know that there was no chargeable crime that Hillary was involved in. But while saying out of one side of their mouth, we're for law and order and due process and the justice system working properly, they're saying imprison Hillary Clinton, despite the fact that she was cleared of criminality.
Said that she should go to jail for mishandling classified information. Do you think he should be held to the same standard that he was setting for Hillary Clinton, or do you think that it's different for some reason?
I think he said that when you understand his personality and how he words things, he said that in jest.
So that's a great moment. Okay, this is what we call cognitive dissonance or magical thinking, depending on your perspective. They're asked, Trump said Hillary should also be locked up for those things, but now Trump did it. What about we simply hold Trump to the standard he said should be applied to Hillary Clinton? And they go, well, when Trump said Hillary should be locked up, he was kidding. But these folks just said Hillary should be locked up. Were they?
I just said it too.
Also kidding 30 seconds earlier? It doesn't matter. They're in a world of their own.
He didn't, I think he's just trying to paint a word picture, but should she have gotten some sort of punishment? Yes. Yes, I think so.
He's entitled to declassify whatever he wants to declassify. So, and other presidents that have left office have had classified documents.
Again, another talking point straight from the right. Trump is entitled to declassify things. Trump admits in audio recordings he didn't declassify those things. The actions for which Trump has been indicted took place after he was president. When we talk about Obama or Bush and their documents, they arranged with NARA to temporarily store documents in specific places, disclosing where that was on a temporary basis until they could be permanently located either at presidential libraries or other places. It's not true what this guy is saying, but it is in lockstep with what Trump and Mark Levin and these other right-wing figures have fed to them.
They were not treated the same way as Donald Trump is being treated. It is a two-tier justice system in this country.
Literally another word, another phrase from Trump. This is what this guy has fallen for, all of it.
For sure. There's no doubt about it.
The biggest thing is that they
All right, let's skip ahead a little bit here to other moments from the panels. If you're interested in the interview between Judy Woodruff and the pollster Sarah Longwell, you can check this out.
Videos showing the Capitol Police walking these people through the Capitol, talking, no problems whatsoever.
This is another right-wing argument, which they have been fed and have uncritically accepted. If what the rioters did was so wrong, why did the Capitol Police welcome them? And of course, once you realize, well, what was going on was once police realize they're unable to keep a crowd back, then you have to give way. And at that point, what you want to do is keep people calm. But the idea was the Capitol Police thought it was great. They just welcomed the protesters. How can you charge them?
And then they turn around and say, they attacked us, in essence. The videos show a whole different story than what they're saying.
But ladies and gentlemen that's watching the show, they released the full footage. Tucker Carlson this was one of the breaking points to Tucker Carlson falling down in the industry because he did a full coverage of it. And they thought it was the scrutiny. They thought it brought back hurt. But we had Black Lives Matters who had millions and billions of dollars structured. Yes, true.
Thing happened.
Arguably, once we got the videos from the January 6th committee, what happened is even worse than what was originally reported. But this guy wants to say it really wasn't a big deal.
I personally don't think that like he was calling people to like do like I watched like what he said and everything, and like I mean he didn't say anything to me like in watching it that was like, you know, oh yeah, he's telling them to go and like storm the Capitol, you know, like I personally didn't feel like that that what he was said was so inflammatory that he was just trying to like, you know, tear the country apart.
They're still arresting people too.
He quite literally was trying to overturn the results of an election he lost. If that's not an action to tear a country apart, I don't know what is.
2 years?
Then you don't know what is. If you ever been, I don't know this player, but when you feel like you're wrong and you have the right and you know the laws and you can fight something, fight it. He's not the only person that's up there fighting stuff like this.
Since it happened.
He loves this country. I can't believe that somebody that loves this country would want to cause people to fight like that. And he's against wars.
Well, he's not the typical politician, and his words aren't what we call polished, and he just blurted out.
Do people want to vote for a Republican candidate who is committed to pardoning the people from January 6th?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. They want that. They actively want a candidate who will pardon the rioters. They are so convinced of the innocence of those individuals.
Guilty of these charges. He goes through the courts and they find him guilty. Raise your hand if it makes you support him more.
Okay.
Before we get deeper into this, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you get all the notification when I go live. Hey, I finally actually said it.
The question is, if Trump is found guilty, do you support him more? Remember, due process. We're now not talking about the Justice Department. We're talking about a jury. We're talking about a jury just like this group of people, as scary as that is, finding Trump guilty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of the 8 people say I would support Trump more if he were found guilty by a jury of his peers.
Raise your hand if it makes you support him less.
No one.
And President Trump retains some measure of support, even among those who think he likely committed a crime.
I read the indictment, and it's plain as day that he broke the law knowingly. Whether the DOJ came after him, which I think is very plausible, and why they're ignoring Hunter Biden's laptop, I think is a separate issue. But it is clear he broke the law, and I think it's time for him to go away. And I appreciated what he did for the country during his 4 years, but I think that he is part of the problem.
But when asked if he'd vote for Trump if he were the nominee running against President Biden,
Trump's the nominee versus Biden. What will you do?
I would vote for him for the 3rd time.
You would.
I think that it's that significant.
so given that and the fact that they're potential.
I think you get the picture. We are dealing here. This is why at the top of this segment, I said, if I told you, guys, I've got a group of people that wants a flat tax, check out how insane this is, we would all say, that's a very specific policy disagreement. That doesn't raise the sorts of moral and ethical cult type questions that these focus groups raise. What this means for the Democratic Party and the left from a strategy perspective, there's a whole bunch of stuff culturally, sociologically, anthropologically that is going to take decades to unwind from this sort of cultishness. I'm not dealing with that right now. What this means from a political strategy standpoint, as I've said before, is that it is not worth the time to try to convince these folks of anything. The right way to invest time and resources for Democrats that want to win is to work on just getting the vote out from those who would otherwise stay home that are as horrified by this stuff as we are. In a country with a 50 to 60% turnout rate, you don't need.
I'm not gonna lie. I like this dude. He has a good value point of everything that he said. You know what I'm saying? Instead of coming after us, how they're coming after us, the Democratic Party, and how AOC and the DOJ and the Democratic Party really paints the picture of us conservative people, you know, is unfortunately a bad picture. Now I gotta go to my boy because he did got this one video right here I wanted to play and check.
In anti-Catholic bigotry, mocking Christians is not the Dodger way.
Several days later.
Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence for their outstanding service in the LGBTQ+ community. Sister Unity and Sister Lydia. Our next guest is the only openly gay Major League Baseball player, current or former, alive today.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. It turns out that Pride Night for the LA Dodgers, featuring the woke anti-Christian nuns, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, who were uninvited, then re-invited back to Dodger Stadium so that they could be honored amid backlash. Massive Christian backlash against what, again, is a mockery towards the religion, more specifically Catholicism. And you've had MLB players even speak out about the fact that the LA Dodgers were considering honoring these nuns, these woke nuns. I mean, they did. No one showed up, right? But yeah, you had MLB players speak out against this because, again, this is a mockery of religion. Take a look.
Trevor, why did you feel so strongly that you wanted to make that statement?
It had to be said. We cannot stand idly by while our Lord gets mocked. And before I hit send, you try and do as much research as you can, right? You see the horrific videos that were posted of them. You read about what they were trying to do. These things that are deeply offensive to us. And then you see that, well, they're doing these things. They're raising money for this, that, and the other. They've been doing it for over 30 years. But it was the point when the Dodgers re-invited them after knowing very well what they've been doing for the last 30 years.
To give them a Community Hero Award.
Correct. And at that point, at that point, I looked at the Dodgers code of conduct. I'm like, look, or the Dodgers fan code of conduct, and it said you cannot wear anything or say anything that goes against anybody's age, gender, creed, religion. And at that point, it was like, this is going against their code of conduct. It's a blatant anti-Catholic message that they're sending, regardless of how much, quote unquote, good they've been doing in their community. But when I saw how deeply offensive it was, doing awful things to the cross, doing awful things about Stations of the Cross, like it became a point where these negatives are not, they shouldn't be honored, and they shouldn't mock a certain certain group.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. A lot of people are just not cool with this, okay? They're taking this too far, okay? We know that the LA Dodgers would never honor a group that mocks the LGBTQ community, because that's bigotry and hate, right? Mocking the LGBTQ community is bigotry and hate, but mocking religion, or Christians more specifically, that's fair game, right? That's just satire. Again, it reminds me of the race conversation, okay? Being racist against blacks is racist. Being racist against whites is just social justice, okay? Again, it's just amazing how this works, okay? We are truly living in upside down world. But like I told you guys, people are pissed. They're upset. They're not taking it. And conservatives, more specifically religious conservatives, are standing up to this nonsense. They're standing up to the fact that they see the writing on the wall when it comes to the attack on freedom of religion in this country, okay? We've done stories about Muslims standing up, and I think it's time for Christians to stand up. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, that Christians or Catholics, right? They showed out at this protest, okay? They want to call it a protest.
I'm glad this is happening. I'm so glad this is happening. This needs to happen more. Christians, stand up for our rights. Stand up for what we believe in, man.
Prayer, not a protest, but it showed out at Dodger Stadium to push back against this group of woke nuns being honored. And boy, I'm telling you, they showed out in the thousands. Probably more people at the protest than the stadium. But before we get in there, I just want to let you guys know, if you like my channel, you want to support my channel, you can check out a daily reminder agrees with the Denny's mugs at my website, BCP. So without further ado, roll the clip.
We begin with the large protest outside Dodger Stadium over the decision to honor a controversial group of Pride Night.
Hundreds of people making their voices heard even before the first pitch. Eyewitness News reporter Michelle Fisher live outside Dodger Stadium with more on what has some Catholics so upset. Michelle?
Well, there are thousands, a few thousand people here for this demonstration, a protest. One person telling us, though, it is more like a prayer service or a prayer vigil, because they do come with a peaceful message, but they are making their message and their voices heard loud and clear. I'm going to actually step a bit out of the way so you can see what's going on behind me. This is Stadium Way, so a lot of people that are making their way to tonight's Pride events will have to pass this protest on their way to the stadium. They actually, this group getting ready to march to the stadium right now around 5 o'clock. They tell me they'll be walking up the street to the stadium, carrying their signs and voicing their message. We also want to take a look at some Air 7 HD video to give you a look at what it looks like overhead and how large this crowd is overhead and what it looks like as, again, a few thousand protesters, many of them.
These people are not going to the game. These people are making sure they stand outside, and you have to pass them to come to the game. Love it.
Catholics are marching in response to the group, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, being included in tonight's Dodgers Pride Night.
So let's pray. So it's important to understand that this is a prayer and not a protest.
we're basically praying for the so-called nuns.
This group of a few thousand demonstrators is being vocal tonight about their issues with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence and the group's inclusion in Dodgers Pride Night.
We should be tolerant of everybody. Likewise, they should be tolerant of our faith and our feelings.
Shirts and signs sprinkled in the crowd calling for a boycott of the Dodgers after the team invited the sisters to accept a Community Hero Award as part of tonight's festivities.
The Dodgers are doing, allowing this group to be here. It goes against
That was
the Catholic
nasty.
faith.
Did y'all just see that?
Allowing this group the Hero Award as part of tonight's festivities.
The Dodgers are doing.
What does that have to do with Christianity? That look like a devil. That's not cool. I'm glad that they stood up for that. You know what I'm saying? If you lost your faith or you don't believe in faith, but you believe in the devil, God is real. And this is more and more proof that God is real because the devil is coming out of the woodworks.
Allowing this group to be here. It goes against the Catholic faith.
If they were to do that with the Muslim group, no one would put up with that.
Sisters telling KABC at last week's Angels Pride Night, the entire house plans to attend tonight's Dodgers game. This after a controversial back and forth that saw the sisters initially invited by team, then uninvited, then finally re-invited amid backlash. Inside the stadium, Dodgers manager Dave Roberts addressing the controversy.
I do think that we should still all be able to coexist. And for me, it just always goes back to loving everyone. And as the manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers, a baseball team, we welcome anyone that comes through these gates to support our ball club.
Now, Air 7, I understand, is still overhead. You can see the group of demonstrators now making their way up Stadium Way and going to Dodger Stadium again as they carry signs, crosses. They're wearing shirts that say boycott the Dodgers. This just really a tremendous show of support here for Catholics. Back out here live, you can see the demonstrators and protesters as they're making their way, some of them addressing the camera and waving as they make their way up Stadium Way. Our viewers might remember last week's Angels Pride Night and the response that was there. One of the people we spoke with then telling us that they would have a tremendous show of support tonight. Someone was here all the way from Ireland, other individuals from Texas. So we will have another live report coming up at 6 o'clock as we keep an eye on this this prayer here. They want to make it known that it's not a protest. It's not.
They deep. They deep as hell. Man. Ooh, wee. I knew there was a good report. That's why I was like, man, I got to. I did see something.
In anti-Catholic bigotry.
What is this?
Now to a story getting a lot of attention now. I want to take you down to the Tar Heel State, North Carolina Senate Committee passing a bill that bans males from female sports.
Hell yeah.
Right,
Look at y'all. I'm on the road.
Quite a story. She's a high school girls volleyball player. She's been urging lawmakers to take action after she suffered a concussion and a neck injury back in September from a transgender player spiking the ball during a volleyball game.
I could go on and on about how this incident has affected my life, but I'm not here for that because I'm not here for me. Allowing biological males to compete against biological females is dangerous.
I want to bring in Peyton McNabb, the woman you see there on screen and here in person. Welcome to New York.
Thank you.
You're from Murphy, North Carolina.
We've been waiting for you.
Yeah, you're the far western part of the state. First time on an airplane. First time to New York City. You're living life. Back on the 1st of September, I've seen the video. You took a shot.
It's hard for me to watch.
Yeah. What do you remember from that?
I just remember the very, very silent and shocked gym after it happened. I remember the fear from my teammates, knowing that they would have to continue to play the game even after that incident happened. And I just remember everyone just so not knowing what to do, and it was just very, very traumatizing.
What was your recovery like?
It was hard. It's very slow. It's been very difficult, not being able to get back into things as I have in the past. So it's been very difficult, but thankfully I'm improving.
Did you know immediately when it happened? Like, did you know you were playing against a transgender?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So, and then that happens. And had you been concerned about the strength of this individual before the game?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so. But we couldn't just refuse the game since it was a conference game. So we had to continue to play them, even though none of us wanted to. So it was definitely.
So during warm-ups, right? You're checking out the other team. They're on the other side of the court. What did you see, and what did you think of that play?
You know she can't say what she's saying. She said, "I seen a man over there hitting that ball like, whoo, whoo." You know how girls have that putting that into it. She heard that's what she heard. She felt heat of a man's deep
player's
voice.
Performance.
It was obviously a lot different than what we've been seeing the rest of the season or the rest of the years I've been playing. I was very used to it though at that point because he's the same age as me. So we played together all 4 years against them. But I just remember seeing how like the fear and especially our younger players on the team who've never played against them before.
Wow.
So just seeing how scared they were, it was really heartbreaking.
Did you hear from that individual afterwards?
I hadn't heard from them at all until like a week after I spoke out for the first time. They sent me a message on Instagram, and it was very hateful. There's no remorse at all, and so
Like angry towards you for saying something that biological males should not be allowed to play against in female sports.
Yes.
Well, the State House has taken action, and now the Senate looks like it will as well. But you got a Democratic governor in Roy Cooper.
This woman is a hero for everybody who doesn't think so. That's your opinion. In my opinion, this lady is a hero. I just want to say that. I want to make sure you know, in my eyes, hero. She's changing the game back to where it needs to be changed, one state at a time. She's not the only woman that's doing this. There's a lot of women that's stepping up. Maybe not enough. You understand the backlash you do get, but I appreciate all these females, women, girls, who standing up for themselves. I do.
Do you think he would agree with the lawmakers in the State House to ban?
No, definitely not. He definitely will not agree with this whole situation. So everyone's already expecting that.
You know, it's a topic of national conversation. It came up in the White House the other day, and here was the question and answer.
What would the president say to parents out there who have daughters, let's say in high school, for example, who are worried that their daughter may have to compete against a male and worry about their daughter's safety?
That is a dangerous thing to say, that essentially transgender kids we're talking about are dangerous.
I know you're in high school. I grant you that. But what do you think about a comment like that, saying it's dangerous after what you experienced?
I think it's very, very hypocritical. I think she's taken what others have said about how this is dangerous for us, and she's essentially switched it around and played the victim from the situation, which I expect nothing less from that whole administration. So, you know.
I just want to end with this question because I noticed that you said that you're not here in New York for yourself, and you didn't speak out for yourself. Tell us why you are doing this. Why does this matter to you?
So I'm doing this because I don't want anyone else to have to ever go through what I went through. And even the thought of it happening to my younger sister who's going into high school, or, you know, my other family members, my teammates, if that happened to any of them, it would just infuriate me. So just the thought of that. And I just don't think this is something that we should even have to be talking about. So.
Well, it's not resolved yet,
No.
and it may not be.
But you're a part of an attempt at a solution. And Peyton, we thank you for being here, and we thank your dad for being here too. Happy Father's Day to you, sir. All right.
Pops is over in the corner over there.
All right. Thank you, Peyton.
Thank you for having me.
Now to a story getting a lot of attention now. I want to take you down to the Tar Heel State, North Carolina Senate Committee. passing a bill that bans males from female sports. And our next guest has quite a story. She's a high school girls volleyball player. She's been urging lawmakers to take action after she suffered a concussion and a neck injury back in September from a transgender player spiking the ball during
Spiking. I just want to play that beginning so y'all get a full description of what happened. I'm glad some of us are stepping up. I'm glad I do make these videos every day so y'all can see, so y'all can have your own opinion, make your own comments, do what you do. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm trying to build this community. Hope that y'all always put your comments down. I do read them all after the show. You know what I'm saying? Let's have a discussion. We are creating a Discord family so we can all, you know what I'm saying, have deeper discussion after the show. I'm working on it. I'm getting it together. For real. Just trying to see if I can find us a quick little story real quick. Nope. I don't, y'all. Anything I have is gonna be too big, a little too big. I ain't got it. So check this out. I'm gonna end on this note, y'all. Y'all have a good night. Y'all be peaceful. Y'all stay tuned. I hope that every time that y'all share this video out, because I don't even know how I'm going to end it. Just share this video out. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good night. Peace.